All right, the liberal left going nuts over recent comments by Housing Secretary Ben Carson. Listen to what he said here.
I think poverty to a large extent is also a state of mind. You take somebody who has the right mindset, you can take everything from them and put them on the street. And I guarantee you, in a little while, they'll be right back up there. And you take somebody with the wrong mindset, you can give them everything in the world. They'll work their way back down to the bottom.
And you know what? Ben Carson should know he had to overcome a lot. Well, Democrats are responding on Twitter with New York Congresswoman Nita Lowey writing, "States of mind, happy, sad, New York, not a state of mind, systemic poverty." California Congressman Adam Schiff tweets, "If poverty is a state of mind, Dr. Carson, then how would you diagnose hunger, homelessness, and addiction? Mere hallucinations." All right, they don't like this. They do not like this. And I'll tell you why they don't like it, everyone. They don't like it because they like to perpetuate this idea of being a victim, right? And if you are a victim, then the government needs to be there to give you the handout, and you need to vote for them because you need the handout. You can't be empowered. You can't change your life yourself with a better state of mind. Joining me right now, Evan Siegfried, author of GOP, GPS, and Democratic strategist Don Calloway. Good to see both you guys. You heard what I think, Don. I think state of mind is extremely important, and I get it. People have hard lives. People have to overcome all kinds of obstacles. But you know what they do? They do every single day. And a whole lot of that is because of their willingness to, their mental state. Why is the left so offended by what Dr. Carson says?
Thanks for having me again, Trish. Dr. Carson is almost fundamentally delusional. These comments are insane. The reality of the matter is that most people in this country are born into the socioeconomic status that they'll die from. And to say that poverty is a state of mind allows us to conveniently overlook the fact, the actual fact of the matter, that poor people are not poor because they're lazy. They're not poor because they don't want to work. But there are institutional and systemic factors which contribute to the way that each one of us live into this country. And you can't overlook that. But
if that's the case, then how do so many people overcome it?
I don't know that so many people do overcome poverty, Trish. I know that Dr. Carson did overcome poverty, and he did so because he had the support of family, the grace of God, and he had a social safety net, including quality public housing, which allowed him to overcome. And I'm thankful for Dr. Carson. I read his book, and he was a hero of mine growing up. But for him to overlook the idea that there are institutional and systemic factors that occur both in rural and urban poverty that keep people in poverty is a crying shame. And it's unfortunate.
Here's what I would say. I think you're putting words in his mouth. Because
no,
Evan,
absolutely not.
He's not overlooking anything. No, hear me out, Don.
Largely a mindset? No.
Don, so there are challenges. We have socioeconomic challenges in our country that we see every day, and that does need to be fixed. We need to help those, though, that are willing to help themselves. And to help yourself and to seek out the resources that you need for a better life, you gotta want that. Don't you, Evan? I mean, doesn't it start with you, the individual?
Yes, it does start with you, the individual, but let's look at what Dr. Carson actually said. First of all, Dr. Carson is known for making gaffes and not putting things so eloquently. And what he was actually getting at is that while you can have the best circumstances to elevate somebody out of poverty and give them that opportunity to climb the economic ladder, they have to be willing to. And there are people who take the mindset of, you know, I'm satisfied with getting the government handouts. And that's the problem that he's honing in on. He wants to, Don, he wants to hit on how that there are people who feel that they don't need to do that, and they're more than happy to accept government
handouts. And let's not forget, I mean, unfortunately, in some families, maybe that is a way of life, and they think of it as just normal. And what he's saying, and I think this is so important, is that we can't accept that. We can't accept that as Americans. That can't be our culture, to just sit around and wait for a handout.
Exactly. And Don was talking about how there's been a massive systemic problem. Well, you look at all the biggest cities where there are tons of poverty. They're democratically controlled, so the democratic solutions aren't even working. When you talk about helping people get off of the welfare rolls and onto working rolls.
This is not about partisan politics, and I haven't attributed the causes of poverty to any particular party. But it's insane for us to continue to suggest that writ large poor people are lazy, that they're not smart, and that
I'm not saying poor people on the whole are lazy. I think there are people.
No, Evan, let me finish. Evan, let me finish. Trish, we continue to insinuate that poor people are not trying to better their circumstances. Have we ever heard of the phrase the working poor? Meanwhile,
have you ever been to a Domino's and Pizza in New York City and who's working there?
Hold on, Evan.
They're mostly immigrants, and they're earning over $15 an hour, and they can't hire Americans.
Evan, if you would let me finish, I'd be willing to bet, Evan, that the three of us were born into relative privilege. And for us to sit here and talk about what poor people need to do to lift themselves out of poverty is unspeakably arrogant and insensitive. And we got to stop doing it. We have to stop perpetuating this narrative that poor people aren't working hard.
I had a lot
and that
of
they're not trying to
advantages. I'm
lift
going to jump in.
themselves.
I had a lot of advantages in life. I'll
As
give
did
you
I,
that.
Trish.
But you know what? My parents didn't. My dad grew up in a family of 8. They didn't have shoes.
And God
They
bless
didn't have
them, Trish.
shoes. You walked around with no shoes. My mother grew up in the projects. Yes, we have projects in Manchester, New Hampshire. And you know what? They both overcame it because poverty was never a state of mind. They always knew they could do better.
Trish,
they always aspired to more. And that is part of what makes our country great. I have to leave it there because I'm up on a hard break. Dawn, thank you. Evan, thank you so much. Good to see you. All right.